Hello and welcome to this special series called Empowering the Ecosystem, presented by Bank of Baroda in partnership with ET Now. On this very special episode, we're talking about the retail banking space, and I have three experts with me. Allow me to introduce them to you. First up, we have Mr. Vikramaditya Singh Khichi. He's the Executive Director at the Bank of Baroda. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. We have Mr. Harjeet Toor. He's the Head Retail Lending, Inclusion and Rural Business at RBL Bank. Thank you, sir, for joining us. And finally, we have Mr. Arvind Kapil. He's the Country Head Retail Lending at HDFC Bank. Thank you, Mr. Kapil, for joining us. Mr. Khichi, I'd like to start off with you. Now, Bank of Baroda last year acquired the two banks, Dena Bank, Vijaya Bank. I want to know from you, how has that experience been? What are some of the synergies that you've been able to bring about? Because there are very soon 10 banks, 10 other PSU banks that are going to be merged into 4 banks. Just your thoughts on this.
Since last April, we have been working on this amalgamation, and I will definitely like to share on the synergies that have gone into this. There are lots of products which 2 other banks would not be having, Bank of Baroda may be having. There could be a process which other bank may be having a superior to the other 2 banks, and when we come together, the product, the pricing, the processes, the people, the positioning, the promotions, all these were the best amongst the 3 which were taken into place. And apart from that, it was a wide network of the branches which basically are the traditional touch points for the retail lending. So there was quite a bit of an expanse from 5,500 branches in Bank of Baroda. We had an amalgamated 9,500 touch points. Apart from that, almost 18,000 BC touch points, which were also an enhanced circle. So that sort of a synergy was created, and it did translate actually into the results wherein our operational profits went up, the retail lending went up in number which is more than 1 plus 1 is equal to, or maybe 1 plus 1 plus 1 is equal to 3, it is more than 3.
Right, fantastic. Mr. Toor, I want to come to you on one point what Mr. Khichi said, branches. But how are you seeing the way ahead? Is there a lot of focus now between consumers, Mr. Toor, to you and to Mr. Kapil, is the impact of digital? So are you still seeing the importance of having branches there? Are you seeing consumers more comfortable with the digital platform? Just wanted to get your experience on that.
Yeah, see, our experience has been that while digital has taken shape and slowly, transactions have moved out of branches, but I think branches have a special place in the consumer's mind. They see you as a bank when they see a branch near them, and I think that's not going away. The role of the branches, the size of the branches, what the branches offer could change, and you are seeing changes from there. So consumers get more and more comfortable with digital, but at the same time they need the comfort that in case of an emergency or something where they need to visit somebody, the branches still have a role to play.
So it's still they still want that touch and feel, the brick and mortar.
Touch and feel. Yeah.
I think in our assessment, as the customer embraces the digital journey, we're also finding an equally large opportunity for the branch network to get an experience created in branch network which could match up to the online space. Well, for example, even if you look at the ecosystem of the digital world, which you call as the Amazon, and they're also creating Amazon stores which could work seamlessly, and you could recreate a physical experience mapping an online experience.
Right.
So I think there are multiple things that play in this whole customer digital journey that we're talking about.
Right. Mr. Khichi, I wanted to get in your points on this also, because again, Bank of Baroda also has a very...
I fully agree with this. Digitization of the retail products has actually vertically taken off. But still, the branches continue to be the traditional touch points where that feel factor is there. Customers do like to engage with the branches, and it is a little easier for them to relate to so many things.
Okay,
so the branches continue to be one of those important.
So they'll always be there to stay, which is good to know, because I think it's a comfort point, as you said. Mr. Kapil, one thing I want to come to you on, in the whole ecosystem, in the retail banking space, what are some of the major challenges that you see for the way ahead?
I think if I had to pinpoint among the various challenges moving to digital, I think the biggest challenge for traditional companies or traditional banks or traditional finance companies would be how to get into agile operating systems. So effectively what I mean is that from when you got to build scale, your operating system shouldn't become a disadvantage. You've got to constantly reinvent your operating system to get it more and more digitally biased, for your systems to get adapted to various partners so that you could move absolutely seamlessly. For example, today, if there is a website which probably is talking about selling few things or connecting your travel, or tourism for that matter, any of the other stuff. Imagine an API which connects to the bank and all your customers get connected to it, or for that matter, a wallet or a Google Pay or our own Pays app at HDFC Bank. If you were to connect it and you actually have an API even connecting to the external world where all your customers touching base at various touch points, even outside the branch, have a convenience ecosystem and actually probably do a seamless transaction of a loan.
Mr. Khichi, I'm taking this conversation a little on the side, but when a customer is looking to get loans, obviously they'd go to a bank, but NBFCs have also made a sizable mark for themselves in this space. How are you seeing this impacting businesses as a PSU bank? Is there many challenges or maybe opportunities that you're seeing there?
Though there are challenges which have been put up by NBFCs, but for the last 1.5 years, we do feel that those challenges have been very subdued. But as a PSU, we have, for an example, I'll take the auto loan industry. Now, for last quite some time, the auto loan industry, apart from the moderation in the economy, has been in a state of a little confusion or a little turmoil for a couple of reasons. It may be expecting a GST slash, the transition to electrical vehicles, maybe the BS6 norms implementation. So there has been, apart from those headwinds in the economy, these other confusions have created a low demand wherein the sales have actually not seen the desired level that the automotive mission plan would have actually envisaged. But having said that, we have put in our processes, our products and placed them such a fine way that where the vehicle, the passenger vehicles section, if I say, loan book of the SCBs has grown from 2 lakh crores to 2.20 lakh crores, which translates to around almost 10% growth. Whereas as Bank of Baroda, while putting everything into place, we have seen a growth of almost 40%.
Right.
So we are, very agile in that manner, putting up all those things into place, proper place, there where we can increase our market share.
Okay, great. Same question to you, Mr. Toor and Mr. Kapil. The impact of NBFCs, because again, I've had discussions with other people also where they've also spoken about the fact that maybe it's not about competition but cooperation between NBFCs and banks as well. Just wanted to get both your thoughts on that.
So the way we look at it is that NBFCs operate in a segment which completely doesn't overlap, at least with the segment we operate in.
Right.
And therefore, to that extent, a large part of customers which are handled by the NBFCs are a little different. I don't think we had a situation where I think banks were suffering at the cost of NBFCs or vice versa now. I think what you're seeing in the slowdown in the NBFC space is hopefully transitory. For the good of the economy, I think the NBFC sector needs to fire.
Right.
At the same time, I think banks have therefore further expanded their own segment base and started venturing into areas which earlier maybe in some cases was left for NBFCs. So overall, yeah, it's been last 1.5 years, I do agree, has been fairly positive. But I think the NBFCs will come back and should come back.
Fantastic.
I think I see a promising future for both, but let me quantify the cutting edge of this game on the challenges and the way you move forward, both for banks and NBFCs, is going to be how you connect the dots between the information that you have.
Right.
So how do you capture information and how do you provide that information back to the customer in a seamless manner? So if you look at banks, they run both lending franchise, liability franchise, cards franchise. So there's a very large gamut of play for the banks. So as your analytics at the back end you start developing, which even NBFCs, to be fair to them, are developing and pretty robustly. But the information flow, depending on how agile your operating systems are and how you're able to connect these dots,
yes,
you will make a cutting edge difference to the customer. So finally, it's going to be whoever provides better value to the customer. I think customer is pretty agnostic.
Yeah.
He's going to really go after who really provides the best value.
Mr. Toor, I want to bring in your thoughts on the rural inclusion part. So, of course, financial inclusion very critical, and everybody's spoken about that the economy will grow if more and more people are included in the financial system. How are you seeing things on the ground with RBL Bank? Progress is being made, or is it too slow? Or, I mean, of course, earlier the government spoke about a lot of plans with the government which were implemented. What's happening now? What's the way ahead?
Yeah, so for us, I think we've taken a sizable bet on the rural segment and very early on in our journey. We today have roughly about 1,000 plus branches in the rural areas where we focus on inclusion, and almost about 10-11% of our book is devoted towards the rural side. I think the potential is immense.
Right.
At the same time, you need to be conscious of the fact that this is not something which will move digital very soon.
Of course.
Okay, you need the physical touch, you need the physical
the
presence.
Correspondence there.
Yeah, and you also need to have very simplistic products which the customers can understand. So we're trying to kind of put that together and take it as an offering to the customer. So far, the journey has been great.
Mr. Khichi, earlier you spoke about the auto sector, and I want to get your thoughts on two of the other sectors where loans are largely given. So one is the education sector, because let's face it, the students from India going out are increasing, and education loan is really critical to them. Your thoughts on that? How are you seeing trends go there? And also on the real estate sector, again a sector like the auto sector which is going through a really tough time, but people do need to buy homes. Your thoughts on
Taking
both?
your first as first, with the education loan, if I have to give a certain figures, the loan book of all the SCBs, maybe a year down the line, January or December 19, was around 70,000 crores.
Right.
And today it stands at around 67,000 crores. So there's a slight degrowth in the overall pie of the education loans, or maybe the loan book which is outstanding.
Right.
But when we come at Bank of Baroda, I am very happy to share that maybe a little steam has been there, and we have been able to look at a growth of almost 15% in the education loan sector, where there's been slight degrowth in the overall pie. And that has been because we have been able to create a few USPs. We have a few educational tie-ups with premier institutes, IIMs, IITs, where loans up to 40 lakh rupees are given as unsecured loans to all these things. For career development, we give unsecured loans up to 15 lakh rupees, and so forth. And we do cover an entire gamut of things as product, not only the tuition fees, but lots of other expenses we do look at. And as a product, as a consumer rating, Bank of Baroda product of education loan has been rated as the best. So that's basically one USP which we have created, which has bucked the trend for us in the education loan. Real estate sector is a little facing a little bit of challenge here, but then lots of things are unfinished projects are there. But then lately there are lots of things where the compliance issues which were basically lacking have been now reined in through the introduction of RERA. This alternate investment funds for completion, the last mile things have been coming in, and I am hopeful that maybe 3 months down the line we should be able to see green shoots in this particular sector.
Mr. Kapil, earlier you were speaking about the 10-second loan. Now, of course, it's the faster that you can make a loan, or rather the points of friction, the time that it takes to give a loan, is the faster you can make it, the better it is for the customer. Are you seeing this the way ahead in that? Any more systems that are being put in place? Any checks that can be put in place? Because it should be that, you know, the customer should be aware of what he's getting into. It shouldn't be that, you know, it's so easily available, let me take the loan.
Oh,
I'm being a bit of a devil's advocate there.
No, absolutely. I think so. Let me cover that first. You know, from an HDFC Bank point of view, we are first more concerned about the fact that every customer who takes a loan is absolutely transparent, and everything is on an e-way. So you
Yes.
you have everything transparently put it up, and the customer is completely aware of what it is. It's a multiple level authentication. So the whole idea is to make it seamless for him.
Yes.
You make it 24 hours by 7, all 7 days. He could
Yes.
take it at his house.
Yeah.
He could take it for an exigency. So it's the whole idea is to make it easy for him. The second most important thing as an industry, I think there's this whole concept world over they talk about and 310. You know, they say that in the digital world, they say 3 minutes for customer interaction,
Yeah.
and probably fill in all the details. A minute it transforms into 1 second or few seconds for a loan,
Yeah.
and 0 human intervention. So I think the whole world is moving to a 310 kind of environment.
Right.
And I think as a bank, we probably want to keep ourselves very agile to customer response.
Mr. Toor, I want to talk to you about credit cards. Again, an important segment for all banks, something that customers obviously want. But the concern is on the, you know, the bad side, you could say, of digital is the cybercrime that's happening. Customers are very worried about that. Your experience, and how are you as a bank just helping consumers understand that, hey, a credit card of course helps you a lot, provides, I mean, especially in cases of emergency, it's like a godsend, but to be aware of, to be financially, digitally literate on how to handle credit card or other digital products also.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. As this segment expands, so do the chances of frauds happening with some of these customers.
Yes.
Do come in, and vishing, etc. is pretty common now. What started as simple education to the customers in terms of, you know, not to share your card number, never share your CVV, OTPs is for you. You try and give the OTP with details of where is the spend happening, etc. But despite all this, you know, customers still end up kind of falling prey to this. We've kind of now embarked on the journey of trying to, one, educate the customer through some other means as well, apart from just sending SMSs. So we've made videos, interactive videos and knowledge series which goes out to customers. These are in various languages. So that's the other learning. The moment you go beyond the 2025 series, what we expect customers to either understand Hindi or English, that is not the case. You need to go down in other languages as well. So that's something which we do. We've also tried to give a lot of control features to the customers on the choice of, let's say, engagement which they have with the bank. So if it's a mobile app, then you should be able to do a whole lot of stuff on the mobile app itself, plus the frequent alerts which goes. But I guess I wouldn't say we are there as yet, even as an industry, because the instances of fraud just are there, and fraudsters will keep finding new ways of doing this. So there's a lot of work which is happening there. At the back end, we're trying to see if we can have more and more robust transaction monitoring systems, throw up alerts in case we feel that there is something which is not in the regular habit of the customer, and therefore try and figure out if there is a fraud. Provide insurance for a lot of these frauds so that the customers don't lose that money. So there is a lot of work which is happening.
And a constant engagement. Engagement it requires.
And it's just an ongoing process.
Yes,
You'll have to
absolutely.
keep tweaking it, keep working on it. Mr. Khichi, I want to talk to you about ease, the enhanced access and service excellence, the 3.0 that the finance minister spoke about just at the end of February only. Your thoughts on, so of course this was 3.0, so there was 2.0 and 1.0 earlier. How has your experience, your inputs on this over the last few years?
This has been a fantastic exercise which has been undertaken under the financial reforms by Department of Financial Services, Ministry of Finance. And our journey in this has been remarkable one, I must say, for Bank of Baroda, because in the ease overall ranking of December, we stood at number 2.
Right.
And we have been constantly holding our position at number 2, or maybe inching towards a little higher, SBI remaining at number 1, of course. This has actually been put into place in very tangible terms, all things which are expected and all the checks and balances which are required to be put. It may be a digital journey, it may be engagement with customers, it may be customer service per se. So, all these are parameterized and basically evaluated against a benchmark.
Yes.
And this journey has taken entire banking experience of the public sector banks a notch higher. And now that we are engaging with ourselves on Ease 3,
Yes.
which will be rolled out very recently, I think this journey has been remarkable through.
Mr. Toor, you know, when you talk about a loan, for a consumer to take a loan, what's your advice to consumers? Maybe like, you know, through this forum, because how does a consumer kind of judge whether this is a loan that's required or which is needed, or is it just something that he or she wants? From a banker's perspective, how do you guide them to take the right loan?
Yeah, so I think first we need to be conscious of the fact that let's say if you go back 10 years,
Yes.
People took loans when there was a real need. Either you were buying an asset or you had an emergency which you were funding for, or you were taking a loan for business expansion. I think with the new generation, people feel comfortable taking loan for consumption, and there's nothing wrong in taking loans for consumption as long as you are reasonably sure of your disposable income,
Right.
and therefore you are taking loans which are well within your disposable income and are fairly confident of being able to repay them, and therefore you need to be a responsible borrower from that point of view. I think people should try and refrain from let's say impulsive purchases
Yeah.
on loans.
Right.
So,
Right.
okay.
Right.
Because usually those are the ones which you don't think through and therefore take it and then later figure out. But otherwise, as long as you are a responsible borrower, you know what your cash flows are, you know the longevity of your cash flows, and therefore are taking loans basis that, I think you are fairly okay.
And one point, since just to add on to him, since is for the public
Yes.
consumption, your long-term uses can be funded from your short-term loans.
Right.
So if your end use is long-term, you've got to take a term loan, not as a consumption loan or a 2 years, 24 months or a 36 months repayment period, and then you fund it for the long-term use. So it has to be basically matching. If it's a mortgage loan, you can't be basically looking at a short-term loan.
Of course.
So those things have to be taken.
Definitely keep in mind what the end goal is, what your larger picture is. Your final thoughts for our viewers who are both consumers as well as businesses that are watching the channel. Your last thought, what you want to leave them with for the retail banking space?
Having online and having the digital transformation is, I think, an excellent thing. But I think the world is going to be cutting edge in terms of, in my limited view, on the way you capture value from customers and connect that dots with the risk and provide value to the customer.
Okay.
In an end-to-end seamless manner with no drop on the floor. That will be the game changer for the industry and create a delight for the customer.
Fantastic. Mr. Toor?
Yeah, so the way I see it is that, picking up from what Kapil said, is I think consumers can expect banking services or banking products to get kind of embedded in their transaction journeys, and therefore they'll almost become seamless. And that's what they should look for, and that's what bankers will be striving to provide, and that I think should be the next wave.
Fantastic. Mr. Khichi, last word.
Yeah, bankers today are absolutely geared up for all challenges, and the products and everything processes are absolutely robust. And like banks like HDFC and RBL and Bank of Baroda, they've been investing pretty heavily in your AI, in your data analytics, and also everything has been becoming very robust.
Right.
And that's basically at the end, last mile consumer is the beneficiary. So they can be very happy with this.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Khichi. Thank you, Mr. Toor, and thank you, Mr. Kapil, for talking to me and for shedding so much light on this space. Thank you for watching. You've been watching Bank of Baroda presents Empowering the Ecosystem, partnered by ET. Now, it was a very special discussion on the retail banking space, and I hope that you're taking back some very important pointers from this discussion. Thank you so much for watching.